Good evening. We will call to order the regular Board of Education meeting of Monday, April 14th, 2025. Kristen, will you take roll call, please?
Tracy?
Here.
Eric?
Here.
Mark is absent tonight. Sean?
Here.
Ryan is absent. Aaron?
Here.
And Ann.
Here, I will verify quorum. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sean, would you read our mission statement, please?
Working together to ensure high levels of learning for all.
Thank you. Kristen, was public notice of this meeting given?
Public notice was given to the requesting news media. The agenda was posted in school district buildings and on the district website.
Thank you. Are there any revisions to tonight's agenda?
There are no revisions to the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda as published.
Second.
Motion by Aaron, seconded by Sean to approve tonight's agenda as published. Are there any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Tonight's agenda is approved as published. We do not have any requests for public input on the published agenda items, so we will move right to some recognition items tonight. We have quite a few donations.
All right, so for recognition on donations of $1,000 from an anonymous donor for the Northern Hills Elementary Eagle Bluff Environmental Learning Center trip, and Lish will be talking a little bit more about that in later when we get to our donations that will need board action. We have some koi fish valued at $110 from Ryan Bourne for Eagle Bluff Elementary, $300 from Mary Cody's Restaurant for the district food pantry, $1,000 from Northern Hills Elementary PTO for the 4th grade trip to Madison.
And as always, we appreciate those community members who are putting our children first, considering the needs we have in our district here, field trips, koi fish, which is pretty fantastic, and the district food pantry, which can always appreciates those donations. So thank you to all of those donors. We have some appreciation to share tonight for our friend Sean, colleague Sean, who, Sean has been on the board with us for 6 years, has provided a wealth of information, passion, most of all kindness. It has been an honor to serve with you for 6 years. What you bring to the board is quiet, but it's full of knowledge and passion and information. So you will be very deeply missed sitting at the table here. So we thank you very, very much for all that you've done for us over the last 6 years. And we hope to see you back. We do have some treats in the back, because we know how to celebrate with treats for after the meeting. And
Lish. Lish.
and there is a certificate coming to you from WASB, so that will be in the mail. Thank you. So. Did you have a speech prepared?
A speech? No, somebody else asked me that just recently if I wanted to say something, but I just want to say it's been an absolute honor to work with all of you. Probably one of the neatest highlights of my career, as a matter of fact, to be a part of such an awesome group of people. So thank you so much. It's been an honor, so appreciate it.
Thank you, Sean. All right, our student representative and administrative reports. We'll start with Leah.
So as it's getting to the end of the year, that means AP exams for most of our upperclassmen at the high school. I've been taking AP exams. My first AP exam was my sophomore year. I took AP World History, and I can confidently say that Onalaska teachers do a magnificent job preparing students for AP exams. We've been doing not just preparation leading up to these exams, but throughout the whole year, actually. Majority of my AP classes that I take, the tests are actually based on the AP exams, which is actually very, very helpful. So stats specifically, AP stats, it's not an easy exam when it's not an easy class, but knowing exactly the structure of the exam and like all the criteria and everything that I need to meet and how the scoring works, just knowing all that information is going to be really helpful for the exam. And yeah, I just feel very confident going into these exams, and I know I can speak for a lot of seniors, juniors, sophomores going into the AP exam month of May and April and June. So yeah.
So those tests are coming up soon.
Yes. In about a month, less than a month. Yeah, the 3 weeks is when the
Okay.
first one is. So,
All right.
yeah.
Well, good luck, but it sounds like you're certainly well prepared.
Thank
so,
you. Yes, I am.
Good.
We'll administer just over 700 AP exams the first 2 full weeks of May. So that's, as Leah said, it's a huge chunk of our juniors and seniors and some sophomores, and it's great experience preparing for the rigors of post-secondary education. Last Monday night, the K-12 program we hosted at the high school, Screen Time that Tisha Marshik and Ryan McKelly did, they did an absolutely outstanding job. Loved the message that they had. And I think the part that I heard from parents, they liked walking away with specific strategies to use. It wasn't just, here's what you need to know and be concerned about, it's here's what you can actually do about it. And I think they did a fabulous job with that. One mistake that we probably made that to think about in the future, 2 different friends of mine brought their kids along, so that instead of, me as an adult hearing it, going home and telling kids, well, this is why we do it, you might as well hear it at the same time. We're all hearing it together. Something in the future we probably should invite, 3rd, 4th graders on up to come with their parents so that it can be more of a family experience to all hear the same thing at the same time. And I wanted to share our U.S. history team, freshman level, fabulous job for their semester project. They want kids to look at a historical event, develop a claim, support it with evidence, and then look for sources and evaluate the quality of the sources. When you think about what happened when we were probably in school, we were given a standard topic, and interest or not, that's just what you would look at. They use an AI prompt to help kids winnow into a very specific area of interest. So for example, just a couple of the topics that kids identified that they then make a claim with, the muscle car boom of the 60s and 70s and how that impacted American culture, how advances in welding impacted fighter jet design during the Cold War, the impact of 9/11 on airport security, all sorts of things that students have a specific interest in. Again, the skills are all the same regardless of the topic, but finding topics that are really high interest, I think it's a great example of how AI can enhance student education.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, some activities last weekend. Our jazz festival was held over at Stony Creek, so that's always a great event and gets newsworthy coverage by our local news stations and whatnot. So our students really enjoy that night. Our forensics team competed last weekend at State in Madison, and prom plans for 2025 are well underway, and prom is coming up on May 3rd. It's at the Omni Center.
Fantastic. Thank you. Middle school.
Yes, well, over at the middle school, our spring sports season is in full swing as well. We hosted our first track meet last Thursday, I believe. There was softball going on tonight at the middle school, and we've also had some tennis matches as well. So those are our 3 spring sports, so those are all going. It's hard to believe, but we met this morning to plan our 8th grade recognition ceremony for the end of the year. It's hard to believe we're already there. And tomorrow we're meeting to plan our incoming 6th grade parents' night the first week of May. And so it's crazy how fast the year goes. And so it's exciting to think about. We were starting to look at all the accomplishments of our 8th grade class, and it was pretty exciting. So looking forward to sharing that out and having a special time with them and with families. We were recently part of another math competition. I know I shared some results with you before about a team that went to regionals and then went to state. So there's another math competition in which any student who wants to can take a test. So students are opting in to take extra tests, which in and of itself is noteworthy. And then how they do on those tests is compared to all the other middle schools, both in our region, which extends up to Eau Claire in the general La Crosse area, as well as across the state. And so our sixth graders got first in the region and fourth in the state. Our seventh graders got first in the region and first in the state. And our eighth graders got second in the region and sixth in the state. So overall, fantastic job by our students who were opting in to take that test. And then finally, I'm going to send you an email later tonight with a couple of pictures that I just thought you all would find amusing. We've had some of our teachers in our older spaces are looking for creative ways to get through this final phase before they get into their new spaces and new classrooms. And so shout out to our art teacher, Hannah Carson, has when kids are done with their regular art projects, they sometimes have bonus projects if they have extra time. And so one of the things is they've carefully taken down some of the ceiling tiles that are going to be destroyed soon. And kids have been painting the ceiling tiles. And it started as one or two, and now it's like the whole room, the old ceiling tiles are painted. And kids are just an opportunity to be super creative and find ways to make the construction weight fun and exciting. And similarly, I assume you've maybe heard of a word wall. This is things that in a lot of classrooms, especially elementary, but still at other ages, it's like key vocabulary terms that they're working on, and the vocabulary is up on the wall, and it's a word wall. Usually it's not written on the actual wall, but our 8th grade ELA teacher, Hannah Goodman, she had the idea of, well, the wall's being destroyed anyways, right? Can we have some fun with it? And so her 3 classes have been making word walls on the actual walls for their blocks, just having fun with it while they count on the last few days before they get in their new spaces. So that's a little bit of what we got going on.
Fantastic. And Abby?
So at the elementary level, K3 just finished up Ames Web assessments, and so those then are translated to personal reading plans that will be sent out soon. So it's just great to see the growth of our kids, but also I think acknowledge the growth of our teams who needed to coordinate a lot of the logistics around those. Also, like Ben said, calendars are filling up at the end of the year here. We have lots of field trips, concerts, musicals, field days. We just sent out grad walk invitations to the high school. In the final stages of coordinating EBLC, Northern Hills is going and Eagle Bluff are both going next week, and then Perch is going 2 weeks after that. So just a lot happening on the calendar as we near the end of the year. We also wanted to take some time to extend a huge thank you to our PTOs, because you'll see a lot of times with donations and fundraising, they do a lot to support families and students, but they also provide treats and meals for staff, and then have lots of community building events for our students and families. So they're just really great asset to our buildings. And then finally, speaking of fundraisers, we each had a principal for the day, a student for principal for the day as a reward for one of our fundraisers recently. So it's just neat to have the kids involved in what we do each and every day.
Fantastic. Anything else to add from, all right. Well, you know, I say this every couple weeks, there's always a ton going on. And then this time of year, it all seems to like, you're tunneling down to that last day, and then it all comes barreling in, but all fun and good things. I love to hear that stuff going on at the middle school, making lemonade out of a lot of lemons, especially that 8th grade team. So thank you all for your continued work and push as we get towards the end of the school year. All right, Aaron is going to report the canvassing committee.
Yeah, so as a part of the, after any election process, you know, we commission a canvassing committee to certify the results of the election. And I have a report that I'm going to review in summary. They met here on April 7th to review the election results from the 1st of April. And the number of votes that were given for the election were certified and accorded as correctly reported in other media. But Bridget Thomas received 3,234 votes, and Garrity received 3,501 votes, and Sean McAllister 2,545 votes, and the undersigned, including our clerk, Brian Hapes.
Thank you. All right, we have some updates from our middle and high school building projects. We'll start at the high school, looks like.
As I've mentioned, the work continues in the East Addition. You can see we're moving beyond the rough wall. They're starting to frame in the walls for the final product in the music area. You can scroll down. And also in the tech ed space, it's looking more and more like a learning space as the walls have been, primer's been added, more masonry block is going up, and all the concrete has now been poured within the tech ed area and the music area. Again, more masonry walls going up within the tech ed space. And the dance studio, the floor has been poured, the ramp has been poured, it was filled in to make it handicap accessible, and now the wall assemblies. At one point, we weren't going to need these, but with the condition of the walls, it was determined by Fowler and Hammer that we needed something for a long-term solution. That's why you're seeing drywall that's been put up now in the dance studio also. And then the final piece, the more framing is going in within the existing receiving area. This is the area that was added on to first as part of the project on the east side, and it's the part that's closest to being finished. Excuse me, and the locker rooms. We're waiting on a piece in the hallway that we need some chemical abatement later this week, but after that's done, they'll be able to rough the plumbing in, which is the part that they're waiting on right now to move forward with in the locker rooms. You can see the trenches that have been dug for the pipes that will be put in once the location's been confirmed. And we can scroll down.
So over at the middle school, you can see the aerial overview there. The exterior of the new addition, pretty much the only thing we're waiting for is kind of the sheet metal siding paneling, where you see those gray areas there with the windows. Those will look like that maroon color, like on the left-hand side there. You can see the underneath, like the overhang, the underpass, whatever you want to call it, has been opened up now because they're pretty much done with that. And if you scroll down a little bit, last week they started installing all the casework into all the classrooms. They've been painted, they get the casework in. When they get that stuff in, I think they're pretty much done with the MEP stuff, and so they'll start dropping the ceiling tile, and then I think the first week of May, they're scheduled to put all the floors in, and so we're getting a lot closer. And then the last picture on that last one was, you'll see in the video here, the demolition of the old band room. It doesn't look anything like it's, I'll let the video play it.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Onalaska Middle School for another community update. My name is Tristan Hausner, I'm the project manager for the project, and Chris and I are excited to show you the progress we've been making here this past month. Crews have been busy. We got masons on site finishing brick veneer. We got trades working inside the building. We have demolition going on the north end of the building. Lots going on. We're all pushing towards that ultimate end goal of turning over a high quality project to the Onalaska community and something that students are going to be able to use for generations to come. So we're excited to show you the progress. Let's hop on in. All right, kicking off our update, we're here at segments F and H, the classroom edition. If you've been down Quincy Street, you've surely seen the progress we've been making this past month. As you can see, we've got brick veneer up, and then we're also doing insulation and our metal furring channels for our architectural metal panels. All right, continuing on in segment F, the classroom edition, we have basically the overhang, and what this area is going to be used for is bike storage and a waiting area in the winter time. Panning around, you can see the stair shaft in the foreground there, so that'll lead up to the second level, which has classroom pods in it. Moving inside the classroom edition, we're on first level or segment F of the building. Right now we're in the Allied pod, and as we scan around, we have some different office spaces and then also French, Spanish, and alternate education rooms. As you can see, we got a lot of finishes going on. We've been working on getting painting completed, and as you can see, casework is currently being installed. Ceilings are in along with light fixtures, so making a tremendous amount of progress here in the classroom edition this past month. All right, continuing on the first level of the classroom edition, as you can see, we got tile work going on in the bathroom. Service Tile has been here hammering out tile and continuing on with finishes. So Next stop will be second level restrooms. Now we're upstairs in the classroom addition on second level. If you remember from our last update, we were just laying the CMU walls that are now painted out. As you can see, we got roofs on, and we're getting overhead MEPs buttoned up here, flowing from first level to second level. We'll have finishes going here in the next couple of weeks. So making a lot of progress. All of our subs have been doing a tremendous job. Once the roof joists were on and the deck was on, they were right on top of it, getting all their rough-ins completed. Diving into some of the classroom spaces here on second level, we're currently in the 8th grade pod, specifically the science rooms. As you can see, we have gas piping going in, ceiling grids in, so just working towards getting finishes installed and then the science case work to follow. All right, we're on the north end of the building looking at what is now the multi-purpose room and the new band area. The masons are getting set and they're going to be working on getting brick veneer completed. Like we had mentioned earlier in the update, they're finishing up veneer on segment F, the classroom addition, and then they're going to shift gears and be up here on the north side completing veneer on segment A. Moving on in segment A, since we turned over the band and multi-purpose room, we relocated the existing choir and orchestra rooms to those new areas, and we've begun demolition and abatement here. So it's just an area that we've been able to bump up in the construction timeline, getting into this area and getting it completed. So Strupp is currently in doing demolition, as you can see, and we'll be doing exterior framing here in the next week to get it closed back up, along with air barrier and brick veneer. Well, that'll wrap it up for this month's community update. We appreciate everybody joining us, tuning in. We look forward to bringing you future updates. I just want to say thank you to all the trade partners that are here day in and day out making this project possible. Chris is doing a phenomenal job leading the charge here at the middle school, and then also our foreman Mike Leese, Alex Plengy, and Brad Olson, who are assisting in just keeping this project flowing at a steady pace. So we look forward to bringing you guys more updates, and stay tuned.
So is the music room like just open now? Like it's missing its walls? Is that what was going on?
Yeah, so that last little clip there where it was all open,
Yeah.
that was the old choir, orchestra, and band rooms, just
Whoa.
totally open. Because
Okay.
we're into the new band room, and choir and orchestra are sharing like the multi-purpose room as a temporary home. And so what you saw there, which was choir, orchestra, band, will now be just orchestra and choir after they build it back up. So, but it looked like quite different than it did before. Yeah.
The Early College Credit Program and the Start College Now. This is for information only, required to be reported to the board anyway.
Yeah, so always enjoy being able to take a look at what students are taking in the higher ed institutions that we have around us. So 2 times a year, the Credit Review Committee at the high school takes a look at courses that students have requested. It's always for the upcoming semester, and they're taking the courses either through the Early College Credit Program, which are the universities, or the Start College Now, which is through the technical college, Western Technical. And when we look at ECCP, we are reimbursed for a portion of the cost of paying for the tuition. For Start College Now, we are not reimbursed, and the credits are a little bit less expensive, which you can see on the second page of the attachment. So for the first semester next school year, we have students who are requesting to take a total of 100 credits at UWL, Viterbo, and Western Technical College. So with these courses, we would anticipate spending up to about $21,000 on tuition. But every year, students always request more courses than they're going to take so that they have flexibility when they're building their schedule for next school year. So you can see that last year we anticipated spending up to $38,000 Right now, we've paid out $4,500, and some invoices are still coming in towards the end of this year. So it's worth noting that eligible students request the courses, and if the course fits within their academic career plan and their schedule, and they have exhausted all congruent district-offered options, the request is generally approved by a credit review committee. And they always tend to be, which we see each time we bring this report, really highly specialized courses that go above and beyond and further than what we offer. And when we look historically, students are taking fewer courses because we do have more AP offerings and more industry recognized credentials for students. So can keep some of those specialized courses in-house rather than going outside to one of the universities. Let me know if you have any questions about any aspect of this report. It's always fun to see what students are, what they're taking at our institutions of higher ed.
Is this typically on, like, are some of these online, like, that they complete them? I mean, I know some of our classes that we offer here, if they get a certain grade, they can get college credit. I was just curious if any of this is also, like, where they have to go there or do online classes.
Most of these are in-person classes, which they need time to kind of like travel to, which is why they request more in order to build a schedule around some of them.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions for Fame? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and Janet is with us tonight to talk about possible 25-26 budget scenarios. We have enclosures 15. I'm going to turn it over to Janet.
Yeah, I would have liked to have had this budget presentation last meeting when it was originally planned, right on the heels of Fran and Mark talking about their visit to the state capitol, because it ties together very well. I wasn't able to be here, but we will do basically the same presentation tonight. We don't know new information, so it's the same presentation. Tracy thought she had deja vu.
And I was like, I feel like I read this.
So this is a state budget year, and anytime when we have a state budget year, we usually don't know what that budget is going to be until late June, sometimes even into July. So we cannot wait that long to be moving forward with our budget planning. So what we will be doing is doing our very best estimates, and then we will adapt the next year for any parts that we were off. And that's one of the critically important parts of having fund balance, to allow us to be able to do that, so that once we get into the school year, we're not looking at where can we cut to make a balanced budget, because as you know, we need to get the contracts out. Most of our budget is staffing, and once we put those teacher contracts out, we're committed to those. One of the things that the DPI has put forward a very proactive budget for public education. And Governor Evers had called his budget presentation the Year of the Kid, and said that it was the most pro-kid budget that he's ever put forward. So just on those two things, we would be really optimistic. But the legislature really hasn't followed through with that in the past years, so I'm not that optimistic at this point in the game. The budget has been built conservatively, so it's kind of a worst-case scenario. I suppose it could always be worse, but planning on the lowest inputs, the $325 per pupil revenue limit increase that was in law that's being challenged, and that's pretty much it for increases. We're hoping that we will have other increases with special education, maybe the per pupil aid, more in revenue limit, but that's how the budget was built. And another important thing that when we remember this basic funding formula, revenue limit is what's important for us, because revenue limit is our ability to offer programs and services for kids. The state equalization aid is very important because it buys down property taxes, because we do want to keep our property taxes low as well. So with those important pieces, the revenue limit, as I said, was the most important one, and that's built on membership. And I'm going to be talking about it, the difference between membership and enrollment. But remember, for funding, it's always about membership. And then that state per pupil amount increase that's been allowed, built it on 325 and a prior year base. And Onalaska is a low spending district. We've been pushed up by that low revenue limit ceiling. I always say to you, I don't know why they call it a ceiling, it's really a floor, but that's what we're hoping that will be increased for this next year. And we build our budget based on our strategic plan. It's really important that, and you'll see that when we talk about our budget strategy map, later in this presentation, we tie everything back to this strategic plan that the board has created. So looking at the local factors to develop this budget, we're looking at a 3-year average membership. It's predicted to drop by 46 students from 2618 to 2572. And remember, we had last year applied population lab study done, and this is where this data comes from, looking at the different ways of looking at, I think there's like 4 different scenarios that they had given us. I took those and averaged them, and that's where that number comes from. We will have an operating referendum increase of $200,000 this year to fund increased costs that are not covered through the state budget. And we're not planning at this point in time, we hope we can change that, but at this point in time, we're not planning on funding Fund 46, and that's the fund where we're putting money aside so that hopefully in the future we don't need to go out to referendum as much, because we can fund these things in-house without asking our community for additional support. So looking at our revenue limit, without the voucher tax, we'll be adding that back in, but we don't get to spend any of that money. That's just money that we tax our community, and it goes and turns around and goes to the voucher schools. We're looking at a projected revenue limit increase, you can see, for 25-26, and then with our operating referendum increase of about $600,000 additional revenue. Not a lot to cover all of our anticipated increased costs. One of the calculations that I did is if that low revenue limit ceiling was increased to $12,000 per student, because that's one of the things that Fran and Mark heard conversation about at the Capitol, that would yield us an additional $871,000, just that one thing. So again, it's early in the process. There's a lot of variance in there, and while it looks really grim now, it hopefully is the worst that it will be. This is a really important slide that I think just does a really good job of saying in a single slide kind of the struggle that we have been experiencing in public education. So you can see in here this $3,380 per pupil on how we've been lagging behind CPI, so Consumer Price Index increases. If we were able to have that amount of money, or had we been keeping up for our district for 1 year, that would be $8.7 million more for us to operate our schools. $8.7 million more in 1 year. Our operating referendum this year is $5 million, so our community has made up some of that, but we're even behind based on where we're at for the Consumer Price Index. Then looking at the difference between enrollment and membership, you see this slide a lot, but I think it's something that's just so important to understand, because most of the work that we do here through enrollment, because that's how we hire our staff to support the students, but yet we're funded on membership. So again, the differences between those two is the open enrollment in students are taken out, our open enrollment out are counted back in. Our 4-year-old kindergarten program is counted at 0.6 FTE, and our early childhood program is counted at 0.5. So those are the differences between those two. And then there's some summer school in there as well. When you're looking at this, remember you've seen this slide a lot too. Just remembering that our largest class sizes are aging out of our system and our smallest class sizes are what's going through our system right now. Membership detail, remember I talked about this drop for this next year. Again, this is membership, not enrollment. And we do get some credit for our summer school program. It takes 48,600 minutes to equal 1 FTE, and then that 1 FTE is prorated at 0.4. So we don't get a lot for it, but it's something. And it's important that we do get that because many school districts were starting to basically cut their summer school programming because they couldn't feel like they could justify it at the cost of regular school year programming. So we get some credit to incentivize us to have that summer school programming. And I think it's important for us to remember that declining enrollment is not a local issue. It's an issue that we deal with, but it's not just us in Onalaska. 71% of the districts have declining enrollment. 55% were declining in 2006-07, so you can see how that has really increased over the years. And 75% of the students are located in just 30% of the districts. What we're hoping is that this situation is going to help us with the legislature because it's a statewide problem for the most part, and hopefully we'll be getting some more support there. So looking at that per student revenue limit, that's taking it through the program. Remember I said the revenue limit worksheet, remember I said 325. If you do that math, it's not quite 325, so that's just some of the idiosyncrasies of the revenue limit formula. It's close to it, but it's not that. So there's different things that are factored in. And here you can see our salary history. You can see this year's budget and then what we've had for actuals for the last few years in both a dollar increase and a % increase. You can see the increase for budget this year is significant. And remember when this budget was put into place, we funded a lot of new initiatives for this year that we'll be talking about as we go through to the end of the year to just do an evaluation of how are these programs working out for us. Specifically, we have the Peace of Mind contract. We've hired 3 behavioral specialists. We have the K-8 English Language Arts curriculum that we're working on. We have the first year of our teacher comp. We had hourly longevity, and we hired a communication specialist. That's a lot for 1 year, and that's the reason for that big increase. So our goal is to meet the consumer price index each year for our salaries, and as you can see historically, this year the CPI is 2.95%. We've not started the negotiation process yet, but you can see in almost every year that's been our goal to meet that, and we in 2023-24 we did not, but the CPI that year was abnormally high. That would have been a very difficult thing to meet an 8% CPI increase. So looking at our benefits, history, and budget, we looked at a salary before. This is excluded payments to our post-employment benefit trust. If you remember, we have, that is something that we'll be working our way out of that, but we still have people that have qualified for that because we went on a forward basis. So it doesn't include payments into that because they throw the calculations off a little bit. But you can see historically both a dollar increase and a % increase, and then for budget for this next year. So looking at our salary and benefits projected on kind of a worst case scenario, and we're going to go through the budget strategy map in just a minute, you can see that we would show quite a deficit if we implemented all these initiatives. We're not going to be implementing all of these initiatives unless this funding comes through for them. But this is showing you from the most conservative basis, and then the initiatives that we have, where we would be if we were to implement all of them. So with that, I'm going to transition over to our budget strategy map, and we'll just go through that. And each of the pillar captains will talk through the item that they have.
And I can start. So kind of been keeping the board up to date on the student information system, the work that we've done to investigate a move away from Power School, which is our current system. When we look across at this, I won't spend a ton of time, but we did recently make the decision that we want to recommend moving to Skyward, which will be called cumulative going forward, instead of Power School. So the price that the cost that we see here is short term, like it's for next year for the migration away from our current, and the difference that we think that we've anticipated we would be spending. However, in the long term, Skyward is less expensive than what we've spent on Power School and Power School support over the past few years. The anticipated impact of switching to Skyward is that we're building greater efficiency in the way we conduct so many of the aspects of our student information system processes, and kind of thinking about having point people, train the trainer, really digging into empowering our staff members and our end users with Skyward. I have the second one too. That's our K-8 ELA curricular resource adoption. Been keeping you up to date on that. That's been a really big part of our strategic plan and our action steps around improving our ELA scores and results that we see. Anticipated about $900,000 cost of adoption. We're in the midst of the end of our pilot right now. It's been pretty exciting to see what programs look like, and just kind of framing it. This was one of the prevailing themes when we looked at our ELA system as a whole, was the lack of a cohesive ELA program that serves as a foundation for our curriculum in grades K-8. The anticipated impact is improvement of the proficiency of our students in ELA, and that includes reading. So it's a huge, gigantic impact over time. And something of note is sometimes when you're purchasing a program, there are student consumables that come with it. So like we're anticipating $900,000. There might be parts of this purchase that are spread out over time because they're attached to student consumables that are kind of purchased on a subscription. So if we purchase 6 years of student consumables, sometimes you can take that piece out and pay for it over time. It's tough to project that right now because we don't quite know which program we're moving, that we'll move toward. So those are the first two aspects, and then I think Sonia's got
And I'll
the
share
next one.
just a reminder on year 2 of our teacher compensation plan. We had rolled this out last year with a 3-year implementation. Year 1 was last year, and that was any differences over $2,000 for teachers. Year 2 is the differences between $750 and $2,000. So some teachers will have a little bit higher increase, but all teachers will have whatever we negotiate with our union based on CPI. This is just above and beyond that to meet those minimum benchmarks that the board decided last year. And then the next portion is more on personnel positions, and we've kind of collaborated together as a group on kind of what is needed in the district. And so I'll let Lori and Fame talk about the top 3, but the bottom one on co-curricular adjustments, this is a yearly thing that Jason and I and DJ, our middle school activities director, meet regularly on what do we need for our co-curricular and our activities to making sure what we've said with our strategic plan that we want as many kids active, and so that we need staffing with that. So you'll see in the why and the what kind of some of those areas specifically girls wrestling is the largest portion of that, is having a head coach specifically for girls wrestling and an assistant coach, and then a few other options in high school.
You'll notice that the next two that I will talk through, they're not green. That just means that like the green ones are ones that like they have to happen. And as we discuss it, we're I think I'm framing that correctly. The two that are not green are ones that like we're still in the process of gauging our priorities and figuring out, I mean, what's going to be needed for next year. So I just wanted to say that. The two elements here, the first one is the elementary academic interventionist ads. So we'd be increasing by 1.5 intervention positions. Our interventionists at the elementary level, so it'd be 0.5 at each elementary building. And for a couple of reasons. The first one is the work that we're doing with Act 20 has pushed our interventionists to fully realize themselves as leaders in that work in our buildings, which is incredible. It's also pushed their capacity. And so part of the execution of personal reading plans, the collaboration of their work with teacher teams is super important. The other part of this is we need to and are working to refine our Tier 3 math systems. So that is, part of what when we think about a 0.5 ad at each building would allow us more capacity to continue to support reading and to be able to refine some of our Tier 3 math systems. And when we look at that, the impact would be fewer students under the 25th percentile, and we're looking across at Ames Web Plus, also STAR Math, and fewer students requiring Tier 3 interventions, plus more capacity to execute those really small groups for students who do need that support. And then the other ad that we've talked about is right now at the middle school, we do have a full-time literacy interventionist that creates groups and supports those Tier 3 interventions across the middle school. And we would be looking at adding an interventionist that has more of a math focus. Again, we're working on our Tier 3 systems for math. We want our kids to be able to get the support that they need as they're moving through elementary into middle school, they're more prepared for high school level math. So that would be the other element. And again, the impact is systematic execution of our Tier 3 math support for students in grades 6 through 8. It kind of completes our multi-level systems of support at that particular level.
What does 1.5 interventionalists look like for the 3 schools in relationship to what we have? Like, is that really 3 half-time people, or is it 1 person, or like 2 people that are 0.75? I was just curious.
Yeah, it's a super good question, because right now we have 1 interventionist that's 0.5 Eagle Bluff, 0.5 Northern Hills. So it would essentially be creating a full interventionist position at each one of those buildings. At Irving Perch, it would be a half-time person. So it would be a half-time interventionist person. And we did that because we do look at comparability through, when we accept Title I funding, we do look at comparability across our elementary buildings. We also look at that as a district. We want parity between our buildings. And so that would be why we looked at it pretty evenly across. It's been a similar amount of extra elements that we've put on our interventionists, and we really want that to be even across our elementaries.
Yeah, I was just curious because I remember like when we had our testing scores that that Irving Perch kind of struggled with some of the scores. So I guess that's why I'm curious, the 0.5 versus the full person, how that's going to support the students. Will we have enough is my question.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, Fame, but the additional point, or Abby, the additional 0.5 will bring Perch to 2.5
Oh, okay,
interventions.
they have some, okay.
Yeah, it's just the addition of the halftime, so.
Okay, that's what I was just clarifying, so thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah,
Thank you for, yeah.
I was like, wow, that's like,
yeah.
No, yeah, that would not be very much.
No, no, jeez.
Thank you. I had that same question. Is, with this addition, so you're hoping that to incorporate math intervention with the services you currently have?
So we currently do have math interventions.
Okay.
We are not, I would say that we don't right now have capacity to have tier 3.
Got it.
Systematic math support. And sometimes tier 3 will end up in a special education referral. Sometimes not, because students are getting exactly what they need. But it's just that it's the piece of our system that we know we need to do a better job at, and we have been with our current interventionists over time, and with the addition of personal reading plans and the work that I think the incredible work that we're doing around Act 20 and just digging into that and like collaborating around that work has made that it's pushed our current staff to capacity. And so it's just looking at like how do it's right in our sights, we're right there. What might an extra that extra 0.5 FTE at each of our buildings we know that will allow us to refine those tier 3 systems in the way that we know they need to be refined.
so you clarified that, in fact, Irving Perch is really will be 2.5. What are the other 2 schools, like when you add them all together for those specific sites?
So Irving
If you
Perch would be 2.5. Northern Hills would be 1, 2, 3 full-time, and 2 at Eagle Bluff.
Okay. That's great. We saw that as an identified issue at the scorecards or whatever, so that's fantastic that you guys are intervening and getting us more people in there to help our kids, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I think what's important to maybe point out again is, we've gone over this list a number of times as an administrative team, and like Pam mentioned, the areas that are highlighted in green, we have prioritized as ones that we feel are essential. But everything on this list is essential. And so it's really hard to pick and choose when you feel like everything is needed. So that is kind of the color coding around it, is that the green is what we've chosen as really to highlight as our priority. However, depending on the budget and what happens, we would like to make all of these things happen for our students. The next one that's on there that is in green, and you've heard me speak of this before, is the elementary alternative education, special education teacher, and paraprofessional positions. You've heard me speak about a program, district-wide program for a very small number of students that oftentimes we go through all of our placement options within the district, and we aren't meeting those needs of those students, so we seek alternative placements outside of the district. We really have put a lot of time and effort into what would this look like if we brought this into our district. It would be district-run. We would be able to create it the way that we feel like is in the best interest of these students, and it's a expensive program in the sense of the student-adult ratio is pretty high in order for our students to really make good progress. And so you will notice that the funding for those positions are not in the column. If you look over toward the middle of the sheet, they're in the existing funding column, not the levy funding column. And the reason for that is that it costs a lot of money to send a student out of the district to an alternative setting. If we bring those students back into our district, that funding will be used to support the program and their students. So that is our anticipation, that there are students currently in alternative programming that we would like to bring back into our district and serve them here instead. And then Sonia went through the curricular adjustments, which is the last one. Anything else you wanted to?
Nope, I
Think we're good?
think we're good. Are we ready to transition back to the PowerPoint? Okay.
Just one comment was the Act 20 funding, the $50 million that's out there that nobody has yet, non-competitive grant. If we got some of that money, like we're talking about, could offset some of that 900,000 also, so.
Yeah, so just to reiterate, this is conservative budgeting, and we will hopefully get better inclination on where we will be in short time, but we'll move forward, and then if we need to adapt, we will adapt. This is a state budget year. What the state does for funding public education will be crucial to, what moves forward on these initiatives that we'd like to see happening. And our current revenue limit increase will not meet all of our operating increases. 200,000 we'll have coming in from the operating referendum that will help us. Our November 2022 capital referendum really does help us in addressing some of our deferred maintenance, so that we're not using those funds. We can concentrate those funds on programming. And then our continued efforts to conserve funds whenever possible to help us meet needs for the future will be really important as well. So our next steps is, the goal is to bring the budget pieces to you in pieces. It's a lot to digest if we do it all in one deep dive. So bringing it in pieces, we'll have our instructional, or our technology capital improvement budget coming forward, our facilities and grounds capital projects are in our staffing, then we'll have community service fund, and then we'll have updates as we know them as well. So we'll be bringing them pieces to you through the October 27th, when we will adopt our original budget. We'll have a budget hearing in between there as well, and just keep refining it. Can we answer any questions?
Janet, the only question I would have, so that budget strategy map, which phenomenal for doing all that planning, that's a ton of that. I think the only thing we didn't talk there in the bottom left is possible personnel reductions, and there's a question mark.
Yes,
So I know that we're worst casing, but what's underneath that?
So what we will do, as we do every single year, is, as we're declining enrollment district, unfortunately, our students don't leave us in one classroom, in one school, in one grade. But over time, just as we have sections that go up and sections that go down. So our goal is to have some reductions if we can make them happen. So we put that on there just to let the board know we're always looking at that. And that would be reductions from the standpoint of class size reductions. We're not looking this year to do programmatic, in basically like going out and saying, we've got to cut $2 million from the budget. What aren't we going to do? The reductions that we're talking about are just from how enrollment falls.
Good, yeah, I just wanted to be clear on that with my understanding of that, because that could go either way, I suppose.
Yes.
So that's good to know. Thank you.
Any other questions? I want to thank you. Your presentations are always clear and very well laid out, the strategy map. I like that, and appreciate the clarifications behind the color coding. I would imagine if we could just make a wish list, it would be much longer than that even, but thank you for your
Well, and
time.
I hope what comes through is that this is our work. That the team really does put a lot of conversation and work together as a team, and that's the way that it should be. And this group does a really great job with that.
Thank you. Sonia, our employee handbook is on tonight for first reading. We have enclosure 16.
Second, yeah. Okay, there's two, whoops. You see that? There are two documents. The first one is the handbook, and then the other one is the outline. And so I'll project the actual handbook, but kind of reference the outline specifically. So if you're following along on the handbook, there is a table of contents, and you can actually click on each little section, and it'll take you right to the policy. The first one being is under leave days. There's two substantial changes here. One is adding just the domestic partner option for staff when they do take their leave days. And that is defined by Wisconsin state statute because a domestic partner is eligible under Wisconsin FMLA, so that's where the definition would fall into play. Further down in that policy, then, another area that is more substantial is adding leaves to testify. This was an option under Neola for board policy, but our board policy dictates kind of the overarching policy on leave time, where their specifics are land more in the handbook. And so I took the language from Neola and just populated it here. Okay. The next one is on page 24, which is A11. And it's really a small wording change, but it's more for clarification on when a transfer for a teacher is done by administration versus a request. And this is just clarifying language that we seem to get tripped up on once in a while from staff that have asked, well, how do I do this? And so this is just that small language there, but it doesn't change the actual practice. Going down to more in section C, which outlines our hourly staff area, we added, it's going to take me a little bit, we added a groundskeeper. We had originally had it as a limited term last year, and the board had approved for that as an ongoing position since we've been hiring them every year. So you'll see throughout the handbook, starting with C3, that the groundskeeper now is added into the handbook on a number of occasions, specifically this area. Also under this section, this is the custodial hours. There is a section on custodial emergency response. It's replacing the alarm system and clarifying that language. What we were finding is our custodians were coming in for emergencies, but may have had, we're not getting overtime for that. And so they would come in if the alarm went off, but maybe an emergency, such as you remember at the middle school with the water damage, they should have been paid overtime for that. So making sure that we have more clarifying language and supporting our custodians that do help us out, especially on nights and weekends. The other change is on page 71. This is in terms of comp time. Right now, our staff do receive comp time if they have overtime, and it is paid on the first payroll in January and the first payroll in July. We just took out the first paycheck, given the fact that this upcoming year, the first paycheck is January 2nd, so they wouldn't even have the time to complete it by the time we process payroll. And then the last substantive change is on page 80, which we have a work group that has started this year that is doing a review of our hourly non-certified staff evaluation tool system and looking at how do we incorporate that starting next year. And one of the major changes is that we would do more of a formal evaluation every other year, similar to our certified staff who are every 3 years. And so this is changing that language to kind of help align with that, and that would be implemented then next year. So there's a few housekeeping ones that are sprinkled throughout, but I didn't go over those today. Any questions?
All right. Well, as indicated, that is on for first reading, so as you review or dig into this anymore, please contact Sonia if there's any questions. I assume it will come back at our next meeting. All right, we have some donations that Lish is going to talk to us about tonight.
Thank you. Our first one from Peggy for the Northern Hills Resilient Learner Program. I just have a little statement that Peggy kind of wrote up to read. She declined to come join us today, but Peggy is Emily Perry's aunt. She's our Resilient Learner teacher at Northern. And Peggy and her husband moved here from Portland, Oregon during the pandemic to be closer to family. She's sisters with Emily's mom. And since then, the sisters had lost their brother, Emily's uncle, Chris, this past October. And he had cerebral palsy and an intellectual disability. He was a lot of the inspiration for Emily going into the work that she does. And that was really hard on the family, but as they spent time cleaning out Chris's possessions, Emily brought a lot of things to school and said, oh, my students could use this, or I know a family who could use this. Clothing, hats, gloves, coats, detergent, bedding, blankets, all of those kinds of things that she just knew that we had a need for someone at the school and was able to bring it. And Peggy just was surprised that anyone would have needed Chris's stuff and was surprised at how many families are in need. And they had traditionally given an annual donation to a more larger national type of donation and just decided that instead of doing that, she wanted to do it locally where she could see her dollars go to work. So, so much gratitude for Peggy for thinking of us and doing that in honor of her family. So that when Emily said, my aunt would like to give a donation, we certainly did not think it was going to be of this size. So very much gratitude to them for that donation. And I don't know if you wanted to take them separately, or do you want
We
me to
can
talk
do them
about both?
together, so
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Then the second one is for a few years now, our PTOs and our administrative team here at the elementary level have been doing the Fill the Eagle fundraiser to go specifically towards our EBLC field trip. And so this year, our families that participated in that Fill the Eagle brought together $14,260 to go towards that trip. So we were able to use all of that to defray the cost for every fifth grader attending the trip this year. So much gratitude to all of our families who participated in that fundraiser as well to make sure that our kids could participate in that field trip.
Wow, I mean, Peggy's gift to the Resilient Learner Program is, as you indicated, overwhelming, coming from a singular family to, and a family that obviously was knowledgeable about needs that kids and families have, but to their willingness to share that with Northern Hills to that specific program is really, really outstanding. So thank you so incredibly much to Peggy and her family. The Fill the Eagle was a, can you describe that?
Sure. So the first year that we did it, 3 years ago now, I think, it was a calendar fundraiser. You might remember approving that, where families could go request donations, and it was pick a date on the calendar and give us that many dollars. So if you pick the 25th, then you donate $25. Okay. If you pick the 5th, you donate $5. And then when we looked at making it specifically for the EBLC trip, we thought, oh, well, let's take a picture of the eagle from their kind of monument that they have there at the entrance. So it was a picture of an eagle with different parts of the coloring sheet that were worth different amounts of money, anywhere from $1 to, I think, $25. So then families could go and ask for donations, and people would donate however much they felt comfortable with, and kids were working to color that sheet in, and then they received, we called them raffle tickets for however many donations or things they had colored in on their sheet. So, and there were a variety of them. If you fill in all the $1 ones, you get this many. If you fill in all the brown ones, you get this many, or whatever. And then all those raffle tickets went into teacher adventure prizes that we had. So the principal for a day was one of those, and so I think we all had a lot of raffles in that, a lot of kids that wanted to do that. But then other different teacher experiences too. I know we have our first grade team taking a bike ride with some kids to Dairy Queen to get ice cream coming up in the next couple of weeks. I had lunch with the principal. I gave a behind-the-scenes tour. We got to see the roof, which is very exciting. You know, so all of those types of things, big
Yeah.
and small, that kids were interested in for a prize for doing different parts of their Fill the Eagle sheet for the fundraiser.
Very cool. And non-monetary, but just experience
Yeah, just-
things, which are going to create a lasting memory for sure. So, very cool. Thank you for your creativity
Yeah.
on that.
You're welcome.
These obviously far exceed our limit, so they do require approval on our end. Unless there is a request to take them separately, we can do them together.
Hearing none, I'll make a motion to approve the $10,000 donation from Peggy Zeitel for the Resilient Learner Program at Northern Hills, and $14,260 from elementary student fundraising for Fill the Eagle for 5th grade Eagle Bluff Environmental Learning Center trips.
I'll second that.
Motion by Aaron, seconded by Tracy to approve two donations, one in the amount of $10,000 from Peggy Zeitel for the Resilient Learner Program at Northern Hills, and the other in the amount of $14,260 from the elementary student fundraising Fill the Eagle, partially through the PTO for the 5th grade Eagle Bluff Environmental Learning Center trips. Are there any questions or additional comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Those donations are approved with much gratitude, so thank you. Sonia has the teacher contract for 25-26. We have enclosure 18.
Yeah, so we don't have any major changes to the teacher handbook except for the dates that correspond with our calendar. The only other change that, we did make this change last year, but I would just wanted to reference it in terms of how the salary is listed and broken out. We did this to be more transparent with our new minimum benchmark, so all staff were able to see how many credits they have, what total experience that we were referencing, and so this is all listed there into the contract.
This also requires approval.
I can make a motion to approve the 2025-2026 teacher contract as outlined by Sonia.
Second.
Motion by Sean, seconded by Aaron, to approve the 2025-26 teacher contract document as outlined in enclosure 18 and detailed by Sonia. Are there any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That document is approved. Thank you for your work on that, Sonia. Are there any requests to remove items from the personnel report tonight for separate consideration? Seeing none, I'll turn it over to Sonia.
Sure. We have one retirement request that Charlie Henry, our head custodian at Eagle Bluff, has been anxiously sharing that his last day will be June 6th, and I think he's told everybody. He will be completing 26 years. I know, Todd, we didn't really chat. I don't know if you want to say anything about Charlie.
Just very appreciative of Charlie Henry, and he is a personality and extremely proud to be a part of this district and Eagle Bluff. He is just that's his home, his second home. And we will miss him for sure and wish him all the best. I know he's got some fun things lined up for retirement as well. So big thank you to Charlie.
My favorite memory of Charlie is I was over at Eagle Bluff on school picture day, and there was one little girl that would not smile, but oh, Charlie was not going to let it go. He made her smile by the end of the day. It was cute. We do have a new employee, teacher Katie Johns. She's going to be our family and consumer ed teacher at the high school. She's been actually subbing with us and has done some long-term assignments already, so she's very well known to Alaska already. And then we have 5 teachers that are under our Title I program that are working at St. Paul's. We just have to bring these to the board because they're done through our payroll, even though they're paid through Title I funds. D is that position creation that Lori mentioned earlier as part of the budget, and then co-curricular contract, as well as a few resignation notifications.
A motion to approve the personnel report as presented by Sonia and detailed in enclosure 19.
Second.
Motion by Aaron, seconded by Tracy, to approve the personnel report as presented in closure 19 and detailed by Sonia. If I may add, wishing Mr. Henry a wonderful retirement. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The personnel report is approved. Are there any requests to remove policy from the group for separate consideration tonight?
Are we, I think it wasn't it on there that we were automatically going to do 36, isn't it 3,600? What?
5330.
53, oh my God, I'm so sorry. 5330.
You'd like to pull that for separate consideration?
I believe so, unless this handout was sufficient for people.
I think you need to pull it.
Okay, yes, I'd like to pull it,
Okay,
please. Thank you.
All right.
So this is the second reading for all the rest, so if there's no questions about anything other than 5330, we'd ask the board to approve it, approve them, and we'll get them in the policy book.
I'll make a motion to approve the board policies accepting item 5330 as presented in enclosure 20.
Second.
Motion by Aaron, seconded by Sean, to approve the listed policies with the exception of 5330. Approve them for second reading tonight as outlined in the agenda, 20 board policies. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Those policies are approved. We will now take 5330 separately.
So when we brought 5330 to the board 2 weeks ago, under the opioid antagonist plan, we did not have that as a recommended addition to 5330. After talking to people, board members, we're now bringing this back as a recommended part of the plan, and you have a single handout that just takes that paragraph. All the rest of 5330 is the same as what it was before. It just takes the opioid antagonist plan language, and you can read it. We crossed out District Emergency Nursing Service Plan, which was part of the recommendation because we do not have a district nursing service plan. We have plans for different administration of medication and so on. So that was crossed out. We did add in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, fifth line, the opioid antagonistic medication shall be located at minimum with each AED in the district. And then the district plan at the last paragraph, the last line, for administration will be posted on the district website. Working with Lori and Amanda, talked to the administrators about it, there would be a training, a planning, like it says in the first line, will maintain a plan for administration, and so on, training, who the people would be that would receive training and so on. That will all be in a separate document that's outlined in that last line of this paragraph, and it would get posted on the website. And it would also be part of the district nursing service end of the year report that would come forth, so we would be able to talk about what that plan looks like then, there. When we say the line about minimum at each AED, one of the things that's part of the actual implementation plan is the first thing you do is call 911, right? So if it's in an AED, you open up an AED, 911 gets called automatically, okay? But it would be in other places too, that we'll talk more about on May 1st. principal's office, health rooms, those kind of health offices and so on. But that wouldn't be part of the policy necessarily, other than the plan itself, so. We're asking for that change to happen. Thank Tracy and Mark for their input, the rest of the board members that gave input, and if you approve that change in that plan, then it would get changed with all the rest of the ones you previously approved. So, questions?
Yeah, the only question I have is it necessary? You indicated that part of the plan would include locations or where it's stored. Is it necessary to include that it's located at a minimum? If that's already, is it redundant if it's going to be already included in the plan that's on the webpage?
So that was something that I kind of brought forward, and part of that deals with the WASB's definition of a board policy, and I'll read that for everyone. I know that I sent that to
Well,
everyone.
we've already received it,
Well, the
right?
public hasn't seen it, so I'm going to read it. The general definition of school board policy is a guide for present or future action. It tells what is wanted, the ends, outcomes, and also indicates why and to what extent something should be done, any limitations. It's an idea statement designed to bring about action. So, and WASB felt it was important enough to bold the words what, wanted, why, and to what extent. So the statement of where it shall be located at minimum is telling the to what extent. That's the simple way to describe it.
Right, but that's what I'm asking, is it gonna, will it also be included in the plan that's posted on the website?
Yes.
Okay. That's my question, it seems redundant.
Well, I would argue that,
Well, we don't have to argue, I'm just stating my opinion.
oh, okay.
Other questions or comments for me or Tracy?
Anything? Okay. What is the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion to approve policy 5330, administration of medication emergency care, with the added inclusion of the opioid antagonist plan as outlined in the handout and the updated policy version.
We don't have a second.
Should I just continue with, I mean, I want to share this other reason, and I know that you said that you're just sharing your opinion, but I just want to include these additional details for consideration when people make their determination on how to proceed with this. So I want to just start out by thanking everybody who's put in time looking into this. I want to thank the Onalaska alum, La Crosse County Health Department, Narcan.
Tracy.
Just point of order, I'll second the motion.
I know, but.
Motion by Tracy, seconded by Aaron, to approve policy 5330, administration of medication and emergency care. Are there any additional questions?
Yeah, I would like to continue with my statement. So, like I said, I want to thank Laura Runske. I want to thank the unnamed emergency room nurse from Mayo Clinic Health System, the chair of Gunderson's Emergency Medicine Department, medical toxicologist and director of Minnesota's Poison Center, Dr. Benjamin Orozco, patrons of the Cooley Recovery Center, and acute care APNP Michelle Alba for their time and insight. So part of the reason and the rationale for this to be included in the plan is that back on June 29th of 2015, the National Association of School Nurses issued a statement with the board of directors know that the school nurses have the knowledge and education to identify and safely manage emergent situations in school, and they supported having Narcan in the schools. In September 14th of 2016, the National Association of School Nurses came out with a tool to address the opioid epidemic, and that's when they first shared their naloxone in schools toolkit to help support school nurses with training, presentations, and resources to help nurses, leaders, and community members take the steps to identify and react to possible opioid overdose. On August 27th of 2018, so this was 2 years after the National Association of School Nurses came out with their support, and 3 years after they came out with their statement that they recommend it be in the schools. Our Onalaska School District policy, the one we're discussing here today, was adopted and updated and had no naloxone language from the policy after being reviewed by admin, school nursing, and consultation with the district medical advisor. And some of the rationales that we shared at the last meeting were concerns about expiration dates, concerns about training, et cetera. August 2020, we reviewed that the FDA extended the shelf life. In September of 2023, the National Association of School Nurses updated their toolkit with additional resources and training materials. In January 2024, we already shared that the FDA increased the shelf life again to 4 years. And here we are, March, at our last meetings when we had first reading of the same policy. It was brought forward for review as part of routine policy maintenance without the naloxone language included in the policy, having been reviewed by admin and nursing again. So I think it's imperative that although I'm very thankful that the plan that they have in place is to have it in all the schools, the original plan that was brought forward did not include it at all. And like I said, as outlined by the Wisconsin Association of School Boards, it would be negligent to not include that to what extent statement in our policy, as that's part of the definition of the school board policy. So I just ask that we take that into consideration. Nothing has changed other than like who is in what position, you know, the role of oxygen in brain health and, you know, to prevent brain death and damage, you know, that hasn't changed. Where our schools are physically located, our emergency response personnel, that hasn't changed. So I think it's imperative that we include that statement in there, even if it does seem redundant, because it will leave no opportunity for, like, alternative, what's the just word? Ways for it to be carried out, I guess. We're setting the expectation. To what extent we're setting the expectation, it won't be open for other interpretation if we have it in there. So that's my rationale.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Policy 5330 is adopted. Are there any requests to remove items from the consent agenda tonight for separate consideration?
Hearing none, I'll move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Aaron, seconded by Sean, to approve tonight's consent agenda as presented. Are there any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The consent agenda is approved as presented. We have no further business.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Tracy, seconded by Sean to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your time tonight.